This is The Art of Startup War, and I am your host, Brian McMahon. I am the sensei here at Expert Dojo, the fastest growing startup accelerator in Southern California. Now, in the first 2 seasons, we answered your questions about how to find investment for your business. We brought in the most accomplished investors in startup in America. You can find it on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Now, here in season 3, we're flipping the script. We're going to hear real stories from entrepreneurs who are in the trenches today. In these episodes, we're going to take our guests through the storytelling model called the entrepreneur's journey. We'll hear about what sparked their call to entrepreneurship, help they received along the way, forces they overcame, dark times and revelations. So join us every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and start the week a smarter entrepreneur. Good morning, it's 10 o'clock, it's Tuesday morning. Well, it's not really 10 o'clock because we're kind of recording it, but it is for you. Brian here from Expert Dojo. We have another phenomenal podcast. Today I got a massive, great, wonderful surprise for you because we have one of the top VCs in LA right here in the big bad fridge. Moonshot. Welcome to the fridge.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting. It's pretty warm for being a fridge, but that's okay.
I know. We kind of do it the other way around, right? And we go back. We go back to previous lives when you just used to hang out the dojo and come around.
Yes, this is very true.
Your journey into venture capital is interesting.
Yeah. So my journey to venture is a little bit non-traditional. I think, when you're like an associate or a principal, typically your journey is like you go to school, you work in banking for some time, and then maybe you do a private equity gig or work for a big startup, right? And that was like not at all the case for me. When I went to school, I went to UCLA. I thought I wanted to be an urban planner. And so right after graduating from college, I actually took a role in DC, doing a fellowship in affordable housing. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. Was there for a year and a half, experienced my first blizzard, experienced my first foray with politics, and realized that's absolutely not what I wanted to do.
It's still pretty cool, though, because at least you went to the light side, right? I thought you were going to go to the dark side.
No.
You were going to be like, I'm going to plan towns and local government and stay there for the rest of my life.
And that's what I thought I wanted to do. I mean, I have always been kind of interested in how...
But you went for the little people.
Yeah, and how the world is built and how we can support folks. And I think housing is still a really big issue, right? But I just ultimately decided that's not what I want to do. So I picked up and I moved to San Francisco. And one of the reasons I didn't want to work in affordable housing was because politics just moves really slowly.
You couldn't afford a house, first of all, in San Francisco.
I couldn't afford a house. But, there's just not a lot of innovation going on in the public sector. And so I moved into philanthropy thinking that, there's no regulation and there's really no amount of money that's too much. And what I quickly found was that I would go into these rooms and advise these large philanthropic foundations, and nobody wanted to innovate on anything despite not having really any overhead. And so, I was living in San Francisco. I was around a bunch of 20-year-olds who were super excited about their jobs, were sipping the Kool-Aid for their respective startups. And I started applying to a few things and nothing really stood out to me. And actually, at that time I was working 98 hours a week. My hair was falling out. I was a consultant. And
in startup though, right?
No, this was, I was consulting foundations.
Oh, wow.
And trying to figure out my next step.
That is hard work,
Yeah.
Because they want so much and they will give so little.
Absolutely.
And you gotta, and none of the decisions, like there's no easy part of consulting with foundations, right? Because A, it's real hard to get money out of them. B, you gotta do so much work to actually get to the end. And C, every single person you negotiate with is just a long, hard negotiation.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's a good training, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I knew how to really be kind of capital efficient, right? So I found that out on the other side, on the nonprofit side. And I learned that, data is important, how to manipulate data. And more importantly, I think foundation world's really, really detail oriented. And so, I mean, you're around a bunch of PhDs. So I think the lens through which I look at things now as an investor means it's just an extra layer of scrutiny. So I was doing that, actually was working way too many hours, hair was falling out, was way too skinny. My mom would always complain.
Oh, I would love that. Maybe I should go into urban housing.
Yes, I mean,
this would
it
really
might
work
help.
for me right now.
Yeah, so I ended up meeting this guy at a bar, and he was a recruiter. And then 2 weeks later, he asked me if I wanted to work in venture capital. So I took a position. with a small secondary fund called Atlas Peak Capital as their
Sure.
associate there, $75 million worth of assets under management.
But isn't it amazing how serendipity
Yeah.
and just randomness comes into our lives if we're open
Absolutely.
to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I knew I wanted to do something that was moving quickly, and I was like, well, what better way to figure out and move the needle than to work on the other side of funding these really innovative startups, right? And that was most important to me, is creating a lot of impact. And I think the great thing about tech is that you're able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then did they, because you're coming in from a totally different aspect, and normally you're right, there's this very trodden path. Oh, I went to this school and my mommy and daddy are in a firm and I got into investment banking and then afterwards but you came in was that just because they were looking for a different perspective on investment?
I think I'm just really good at convincing people I can do things that I'm not necessarily capable of doing.
Okay, I'm convinced.
And so they figured I had this like strong stats data background from my consulting days, because that was really rooted in honestly statistical analysis. And I've been told I'm personable. So I think that, combined with the two and my willingness to learn, they were willing to basically teach me the world of venture.
How much of investing in startups is cold, hard statistical analysis? Now, I know you're going to tell me both, right? But I want to go a little bit deeper. And how much of it is the person themselves, and I suppose maybe the idea, but more importantly, like the ability for them to be able to break through?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this is something I'm continuing to learn, right? So like at the secondary firm, I was so far on the late stage where I had data and I had metrics, and you can make some really great educated guesses about where you think a company would exit, right? And where a preference stack would clear and how you can make your money back and then some. Now that I'm working at Moonshots Capital and it's really early days and we're really kind of participating oftentimes in their first institutional round, there's not that data, right? And so I think a lot of that is a little bit of pattern matching, right? And I say that not in the sense that, every founder should have the same pedigree.
I love that term, by the way. I was on with Minnie, who's a good friend of yours down here, and Minnie said, are you creating an asteroid? That's what I want to know. But I like pattern matching just as much, because it's not like you could do a big due diligence into a company that started 6 months ago, right?
No.
Like there's no numbers, there's no figures, there's no anything. It's about looking at a number of random statistics, actually not random, a number of very specific, I suppose, activities or statistics and aspects of the deal, and then looking at other deals to see how they performed based on the same.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think even on a more macro level, right? I think when you're an early stage fund, you have a lot of ideas about what your founder will look like, right? And kind of the passion and fervor and almost this like leadership, at least at Moonshots Capital, this leadership capabilities that they come with. And so at Moonshots Capital, when we look at a deal, it's not like we again are looking at the same pedigree for every founder necessarily, and there's, as you mentioned, there's not a lot of data, but rather this pattern matching in the sense of, do we get this gut feeling and this innate sense that this founder is going to be able to execute, and more so that they're going to be able to handle these numerous pivots, and is their data based either in their background, based on their professional background, or their ability to really kind of tell us a story and walk us through the company, do we feel like they're going to be able to really man these multiple pivots that are almost inevitable?
And I look at now, even our investment criteria here, and execution is such an important part of it. And then I look back, even as little as a year or 2 years ago, in some of the companies that we would have put some money into. And if I had looked at the execution history of the person, there were clues there.
Sure.
So it can't be overstated how important it is for anyone looking to start a business to be able to show to themselves, as much as the investors, that they're actually have been able to break through almost impossible walls, because they're going to face them as soon as they start, right?
Absolutely.
So I love that you bring that up. What other areas are important to you
when analyzing a founder or a company? I mean, I think it can't be, understated how important it is that we really believe in the founder and their mission, right? And that we get along with them, right? I think, Moonshots Capital, we lead rounds, which means that we take board seats.
You guys are beasts. So we go back a long way with you. Like, we really like Moonshots. Even before you came on, just a good, straightforward, honest firm, great to deal with, very friendly to founders, nothing but positive feedback of founders who've been a part of the firm. I mean, and the fact that you place the culture like so high on the list, you're not talking about, traction's obviously important and those other areas too, but that culture. So how do you assess that cultural element and to make sure it is a good fit for you?
Yeah, I think that really often comes through with conversations with the founders and the founding team, right? I think, really core to our diligence process is not only getting these financials right and understanding their intellectual property, but really sitting down with these founders and these founding companies to understand, like, what are their pain points? Are they honest with us with what the runway is going to be after we fund them? Are they willing to kind of take some feedback in the early days, even before we write a check, and really get in the weeds with us? Because to us, that shows a level of vulnerability and transparency that I think is really important, and just a long-term partnership.
Yeah. And what kind of check sizes do you like?
500,000 to $1 million.
Okay, and what's a founder got to have? So I got to be a good guy, got to have the right culture, got to be slightly vulnerable.
Sure.
Do you have any gender bias? Do you have any industry bias?
Yeah, so sure. Core to our investment thesis is really backing military founders and veterans. So the two managing partners, Kelly Purdue and Craig Cummings, they both come from West Point, and they're multi-entrepreneurs. And what we really believe is that there's no other place in the world than the military where you really are kind of seeing these strong leaders execute, and more so that the world is pouring exuberant amount of capital and resources into training these strong leaders. And so because of that, we, it's not our only criteria, but we tend to look extra hard at any veteran-founded companies or veterans on the founding team.
Yeah, and there's also benefits built within there as well. Like they can get really good access to grants, really good access to education. They can get access to government contracts as well. But it's also a really overlooked sector.
Absolutely.
Very, very few firms will focus on that area and try and bring in founders there. But you're right. They're taught to execute beyond reasonable expectations.
Yes, absolutely.
Very smart. I like it. And then have you seen, and actually, is there empirical evidence that shows that people who are in the military have, are there different, I don't want to say success rates because I think that's too simple, but are there specific areas where they have really shown to excel within startup that other startups don't, other than just, they blast through difficult situations?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a stat that I should probably know and have it more dear to my heart, but I believe it's something like, and again, I hope no one Googles this, but I think it's something like 60% of veteran founded companies are more likely to raise capital after a raise. So,
no way.
It might not be that high, but I believe it was something like that. So there are definitely numbers that back it up that show that these veterans are able to execute when running a company.
And this is really important because we know this game is not just about I start a business, I grow a business, the business is successful, maybe the business makes some money. The game is about most of our companies, if not all of them, have to have subsequent raises.
Right.
And if they don't get a subsequent raise, it doesn't really matter what they do because they'll never become a $50, $100 million company. Okay, unless it's an outlier.
Right.
So the raises are really important.
Absolutely.
And so what are you seeing happening in the market right now? So you've been through 3 firms. I've known you in 2 of them.
Yeah.
Right? When you first came through the dojo and we're like, and then we saw each other the other day and I'm going, Jawhara, let's go. It's like over a beer.
Yes.
So it's a smaller world. But how have you seen things change?
Yeah, I'm seeing
by the way, then I want to talk about the difference between San Francisco and here. But just generally, down here, like, have you seen the market move?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get too much into your second question, but it does feel like here there is more opportunity for underrepresented founders to seek funding and build companies here. And I think that might just be reflective of the amount of diversity that is in LA, right? Obviously, it's Los Angeles, so there's tons of e-commerce businesses and tons of consumer-facing businesses that simply just probably wouldn't be built or exist outside of Los Angeles, right? Which is super exciting. I think something that, me and my partners have been thinking about lately, especially when it comes to e-commerce and consumer brands, is kind of this relationship between retail and direct-to-consumer. So really kind of starting to see this hybrid model and how that will further evolve as startup businesses. As it's becoming really kind of more expensive to become a direct-to-consumer brand, how they're going to branch out into retail and brick-and-mortar locations. So I'm starting to feel like that's more of a trend here as well.
It's super fascinating because I remember looking at the retail stores and having this epiphany, oh my God, it's too expensive to be a retail store. It's not possible anymore.
Right.
And now we're looking at the e-commerce stores, and because there's so much competition, and the cost of Facebook ads and Google ads is so expensive, and the cost of customer acquisition versus you have to like sell to people 20 times. It's now, oh my God, it's too expensive to be an online brand.
Absolutely.
So like, where do we go?
Yes.
We used to be a retail brand. It used to be simple. Then we moved to be too expensive. And now we're in this weird, strange whirlwind where there's 3 or 4 advertising mediums. Everybody's an online brand. Very few of them can actually get a positive return on investment from money they spent on advertising. Where does it go next?
I think these hybrid models, right? So like a Bonobos, and even Glossier has some brick and mortar stores, right? Revolve has some brick and mortar stores. And so I think what you're starting to see is these direct-to-consumer brands not only using these typical digital customer acquisition channels, but also really trying to have this core retail presence. And I believe a lot of that is this idea that more than ever, we're kind of seeking community. And so I think as a brand, it's not only important that you use these great digital mediums, but I also think it's important to really create a strong brand presence and almost a community around that, right? And so by having these retail and brick and mortar locations, I think you're seeing more of these brands have like more of these community focused events as a way of advertising and building the story and building the brand.
I love that. And as a VC, of course, that's all you're looking for is what's coming next. How we get onto the trend before it happens, as opposed to investing in where things are right now. And it's funny, you mentioned underrepresented communities. We never really had a mission statement here as far as who we invest in or who we don't invest in. We just thought, let's find great founders who can execute. And then because we're so early stage, like we're scary early stage, many of our founders have not built their product yet. Some of them have just built a deck, but we're taking a flyer on them that they have the ability to execute, that they have a market which can scale, and that they have this user experience built into what they're going to do that gives us a chance of being able to break through.
Right.
But here's what happened. We have now 12 companies in the latest cohort that we've invested in the last 6 weeks. And we had a mastermind group, and 8 of the companies were there. And there wasn't a single male founder in the companies. And I didn't realize it. And we also have like every demographic that you can imagine throughout the group. But that wasn't a surprise to me. Like that's okay, because you're right. It's LA, you expect it. What I sat around the group and I looked, we don't have a single male founder. No, we do. We've invested in 2 male founded companies in the last week or so. And there was like 2 people who weren't there. But it's still 60, 65, maybe 70% women-led companies that we put investments into.
And why do you think that is?
I think they're beasts. And I really mean it. I think they're beasts. I see these people. I don't mean every woman everywhere. I know that every single woman founder we have will break through walls. But at the same time, you mentioned vulnerable, and it's a really interesting word. And it's not really spoken about that much in venture capital. But us men, we struggle with that word. We can pretend to be vulnerable because, we've seen movies.
You can mimic behaviors is what I'm hearing.
So I really care about how you feel and what you say. Tell me things. Yeah. But really inside we're going, okay, so we need to get to a movie for 6:30. I want to get some pizza. Okay, so it's hard. And I think I notice with a lot of our female founders, the stronger they are, the more they're prepared to ask for other people to help, to actually get engaged. It's just really interesting. And I'll see people who are so strong as entrepreneurs, stronger than me and many of the team around me, but they'll still say, okay, great, now I need feedback on all these areas here because I've done this, and this. I think these 2 are great, but I'd like feedback. But I'm really not sure about these 4, and I need feedback. And that's what's been really powerful to me.
Right.
And I think we'll do more and more, actually. I think we'll end up keeping that ratio and building it and getting it through. And all we lack really in LA is more women entrepreneurs coming through at the early stage of the funnel.
Yeah, definitely.
Super interesting.
But I think that'll just happen as, the ecosystem develops, I think,
Do you think... I don't know.
You don't think so?
I don't think there's... I don't know why, first of all, but I don't see... If I look at the percentage of female entrepreneurs that we give investment to versus who pitch to us, maybe it's 1 in 4. Seriously.
Interesting.
If I look at male, maybe it's 1 in 20, maybe 1 in 30 of the ones that actually make it through to the final rounds, right?
Interesting.
But I don't see that many. We definitely have, if I look at the applications, it's definitely 80% men or 70% men. And even when I look at the groups and I look at the entrepreneurship groups and I look at the events that are happening, there's still fewer women.
Right. I mean, that's a more macro problem.
I don't have an answer to it. I just think it's really interesting
I think
that
you're absolutely right.
where it's coming through. But if we look at the stats, one of our companies actually called Busy Girls. It's like Etsy for young girls.
I think you mentioned this to me. Yes.
Yeah, these guys are awesome. I love it. So they're teaching 12, 13-year-old girls how to be entrepreneurs. And they're teaching them about brand and product fit and the education. And then they're putting their products in there, which is phenomenal.
It's amazing.
So tell me about San Francisco. Are they really so different to us?
It's colder. It's more expensive.
No, I wouldn't live there. I love Santa Monica.
Yeah,
it's great. But startup is very different, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was in San Francisco for 2.5 years, moved there from DC, but, I'm an Angelina. I'm from LA originally. I mean, when I was graduating college, I think the ecosystem definitely was more developed than had previously been as far as startups and tech go. But I mean, it still wasn't quite where it is now, right? So a lot of my friends and we all moved to San Francisco. Some of us moved to New York. Some of us moved to DC. And really, I can count on a hand who stayed here. And they're the folks who chose to work in the industry, right? So pursue careers in entertainment. So, for a long time, I think it just wasn't really viable that you would have a fruitful tech career here. And now we're at a point where you can have those choices, right? I can choose to move to Los Angeles for a lifestyle choice. I can choose to help build out a different ecosystem. San Francisco is just really big. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of exits. There's a lot of large venture funds, and something that they don't have, I think that, or something that they have, I think that LA doesn't have, is they have a lot of these large growth funds and late stage funds, right? And LA simply just doesn't really have a lot of growth funds.
It's just different. I mean,
different.
Look, so our fund is so early that we don't really get the opportunity to do it that much. But we had one of our companies that we took up to Sequoia a week or 2 weeks ago. I'm sat in the office of Alfred Lin up there. So people who are in the space obviously know him really well. He's a major VC. People who are listening, just take it. One of the top VCs in the world. And I remember sitting in the office, and I've brought plenty of our companies to VCs down here. I remember sitting in the office and thinking, this is a different world.
Absolutely.
We've moved to another planet.
Yeah,
because it's so much money.
It's a lot of money.
And the hundreds of millions of dollars are still relatively small parts of funds that are going through there, and you feel it in the air. And you feel, I had a really interesting, we had the Startup World Cup down here, and I remember watching the judges in the Startup World Cup, and there's 1 or 2 from San Francisco and 1 or 2 from down here, and the guy who's very much a San Francisco mindset wanted to go for one of the companies that had a electric jet. So it was about Teslas in the air, right? While the guys down here wanted to go for a great company, which audio cardio, where it makes your ears better while you're listening to music. So super thing. But they were thinking, let's get a safe company that we can bring through that might be a 30, 50, 100, $200 million company. While the guys in San Francisco are, unless we're creating a multi-billion-dollar company, what's the point?
Absolutely. I mean, they're afforded that opportunity, right? They're funds that have been around for a while. They're vintage funds, right? They have proven track record, and quite frankly, a lot of the VC firms here are on fund 1, fund 2, fund 3, right? And so although venture is all about power law and having these really large exits, right, there's still, I think, a part of you and a part of the attitude and the culture and mentality in which we really aren't afforded that opportunity to shoot truly for the stars, just simply because we do need to make returns back so we can raise this, the subsequent fund and kind of continue to build out the ecosystem. And quite honestly, the funds are just smaller here, right? Which means that, some of these bets that these San Francisco firms are able to really back are just simply not ones that LA firms can back because there's just not enough capital.
Yeah, so now the $100 million question. You are an unrepresented founder. You're in Ohio or Texas. You're looking to raise, you got a great tech idea. You're looking to blow it up. You need to go through pre-seed, seed, Series A, B. What do you do? And where do you go? You can ask me any questions on this hypothetical.
I mean, I'm going to tell you what I think. I think you move to LA and then probably do a lot of Airbnb in San Francisco.
But you're okay. Yeah. Really, so I'm with you all the way. Tell me why.
Well, I think, there are multiple reasons why. I mean, let's just be honest. There's just not a lot of firms outside of San Francisco, right? And I think I am really bullish on LA, and I believe that you can be a successful founder and raise your first institutional rounds here in Los Angeles. And so I think, moving to LA is not a terrible idea. It's a lot cheaper than the Bay Area and New York. There's a lot of great talent here. There's a lot of great schools, UCLA, USC, that are bringing out these great talent, right? And more importantly, I think, it's a little bit cheaper to hire some engineers and some product folks here. So I think moving to LA is absolutely a great idea. Now, let's be honest, once it's time to raise your Series A, Series B, Series C,
you're wasting your time.
You're going to have to be in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And because I just don't think it's worth moving to San Francisco, I'd say start looking at some Airbnbs and kind of just know that that's something that you're going to have to do.
And then just go up there for a 3 or 4 month period and then just come back and up and back as you need to. I think it's a super suggestion. I'm with you. LA is such an exciting place right now. I've never seen it like this before. Mm-hmm. The venture space, everybody feels like they're a Goliath.
I agree.
It doesn't matter which fund, how small, how big, everybody suddenly has this feeling that unicorns are going to start coming out of LA.
Absolutely.
And that funds are going to start growing. And I even notice more and more of, not just, I noticed two things actually, two really interesting things. One, an event that you're going to come to, which is going to be the Female Investors event.
Absolutely.
Which if we had held a Female Investors event with female founders, and we said to all of the female investors, bring one female founder. If we had done this 2 years ago, we would have had 4 female investors. And we've a really big room in there.
Right.
It would have felt weird, right? But this time, John's got 25, and I mean 25 just female investors, and they're LPs, GPs, and major funds, which they're now coming in and aligning with. And this is the first time, by the way, I've ever seen this anywhere. So I think that on its own is totally incredible, and I'm not seeing it even in other cities. And
I would agree.
Maybe I'm biased, right? Because I'm down here.
I mean, I might be too. But
there's something special definitely happening down here. And I'm also seeing more and more people getting funded at the beginning.
I agree.
Where it was incredibly hard before. And I also think there's a community here. And again, maybe I'm biased, but San Francisco's tough. If you're an early stage community, you're a step away from the homeless. And there's a major homeless problem up there.
I mean, absolutely. I think, because LA doesn't have a few clear winners that we can point to yet, people are just much more collaborative here, right? Both on the founder side and on the investor side. I think everyone's really passionate about building up this ecosystem, because if we all get larger, that's just more capital that flows through. That means we can continue to be even more successful, right? And so I would say that LA is incredibly unique in that sense. As soon as I stepped off, the plane at LAX right here, it felt like a lot more collaboration. It was really easy to make connections with folks. And you didn't get that sense in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's good. So we know where they come to. What do they do? You're starting a company. You're right back at the beginning. Your dream is to get to Moonshot at some stage, right? You want to be able to get there, but how do you set yourself up? What does the perfect, should it be a solo founder? Should you get yourself a partner? What's going to be important from a VC's perspective, watching a startup grow to a place that you actually want to invest in them going forward?
Absolutely. I think, there's a few things that you need to be mindful of, right? So I think you asked a great question as far as adding another founder. I think that unless you're a technical founder, you should add another technical co-founder. But I think, if you can do it on your own, that's great too. But I think what we've seen is that a lot of actually the companies that we have invested in, actually, I don't think any of them
are solo
except
founders.
For one maybe is a solo founder. So it's, except for maybe 1 or 2 are solo founders. And I think, and I'm thinking about the solo founders and, they just have had a lot of experience on their own kind of bridging that technical gap, right? And so I think, if you're a technical founder, you're going to probably need someone who can help you raise money and help you run the business. And if you're not a technical founder, you absolutely need someone to help you with that, right? And so I think that's a great idea. What becomes difficult is when we see more than like 2 or 3 founders, right? Because that becomes really difficult for us to back, simply because there's now issues on the cap table, right? And then there's also issues, I think, just within like inner politics. I think it's a lot easier to back a team that's maybe 1 to 3 versus 4 or more.
That's so interesting, because there's not enough skin in the game as you go through the rounds to actually make it.
Exactly. And it just, there's now, a lot of folks on the cap table. You have to think about what their equity looks like, who's really a co-founder, who's kind of there and on the original founding team. These are all things that you have to navigate, and it's not impossible and it's not a deal breaker, but it's definitely something to be mindful of. I think, for me, a lot of the information that I often tell early time founders and entrepreneurs is to always just be mindful of your cap table and what that looks like, because you want to set it up to be as clean as possible for when your next round of institutional funding comes in. And then hopefully one day you realize an exit, get acquired, whatever that may be, right? So be mindful about the advisors you bring on. Be mindful about the money that you take.
What type of advisors should you be taking? Should you be bringing on?
I think advisors who've done what you've done, who really can either introduce you to your first few clients or customers, can introduce you to your technical co-founder or vice versa, right? Your non-technical co-founder, who have built maybe similar companies before and have realized great exits. An advisor who can introduce you to the person if you want an acquisition, who can pretty much introduce you to that person who will acquire, right? And I think you need to be really, really mindful of the amount of equity you give up and the amount of folks you add into your cap table. And what I'm finding is that a lot of early founders don't think about that.
Is there a percentage that you should give to advisors?
I think that's really up to you. I mean, I would say I've not seen, based on the cap tables we've seen, anything more than like 2%, 1%, right? But I think that's a decision that you need to make.
And it's got to be somebody pretty special to be getting that much, right? It can
Exactly.
It can
That's
go
a
down to
lot.
0.25%.
That's a lot. I've not really seen more than 1 or 2%.
Okay, brilliant. So we have the team, terribly important, how many founders you have. And I'm with you on that. I'm a solo founder of Expert Dojo. It is friggin' exhausting. It's exhausting.
I know.
If I got run over by a bus tomorrow, people would be happy, but not my investors.
Right.
Nor my LP, right? They would go, what, bus, really, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where's other Brian? Mm-hmm. So actually having people in the team to make sure. Now, within the dojo, what I do is I skill gap set. So I make sure that like all of the gaps that I have in my skills, logistics and other areas, which I'm not great at, I have wonderful people like Alex and other people who are phenomenal at doing that. But you should be doing exactly the same thing. I love how you said find the technical co-founder, but then also in addition, make sure that any gap that you have that needs to be filled from a skill perspective, you make sure you're filling it all the way through and going forward as well.
Absolutely.
What else? We got the team, we got the advisors, traction.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to the traction that we like to see. So at Moonshots Capital, we say that we like to invest in companies that are doing 50K MRR or maybe 500K ARR, but those are not like hard, fast rules, right? Those are kind of guidelines because we like to be really transparent with prospective founders that we invest in. Like, these are the guidelines we're looking for, so I think one of the hardest things as a founder when you're raising money is not knowing who to go to. So one thing I'm really proud of that we do at Moonshots Capital is being really clear about the expectations and guidelines that we are looking for, right? And so those are the things that we look at: 50K MRR, 500K ARR. If you're a consumer app, we'd like to see not only that you have a good amount of monthly active users, but more importantly, and this is something that I urge founders to know, is like, what is the behavior pattern around those monthly active users? What does the retention look like at day 1, day 7, day 30, right? And, even beyond that. And so I think that's really, really important to know. And then if you're, an enterprise software company, right? Like, what deals have you closed? What deals are in the pipeline? What pilots have you run, right? How are those pilots going? Do you even know who you're selling to within these companies, right? And so those are kind of early days of traction that are outside of like revenue that we look at.
Beautiful. And it's so simple to be able to actually gauge towards that. By the way, MRR is monthly recurring revenue, so you really like SaaS models, or you don't mind?
We are a generalist fund.
Specific industries that you love more than other industries? I know you're generous, but this is always a bit like Animal Farm, right? Everybody's equal, just some are a tiny bit more equal than others, right?
Yeah, no, I think Kelly, one of our managing partners or general partner, really likes consumer tech. He has a background in ad tech and consumer generally and esports, so he really likes those sectors. Craig, our other general partner, really likes mobility. He had a company that was acquired by Daimler, so he's really comfortable in that space. I personally...
You got a scooter company?
We are not invested in any scooter companies.
Everybody should have a scooter company. Come on.
That is not our sweet spot necessarily.
It's nobody's sweet spot. Everybody just got carried away. They're like, you have a scooter company? Well, I want a scooter company as well. I'm going to invest in $3 billion.
I remember when that was happening, when those became really big in San Francisco, and it felt like all my friends who were working at like Index and NEA and et cetera, all of a sudden they were leading these giant rounds in these scooter companies. So that was a really fun and interesting
God bless
time.
the Chinese.
That was a very interesting time.
But I like you. So on traction,
Mm-hmm.
again, another really strong message for entrepreneurs here
Yes.
is we can talk about the dream and we can dream about the dream, but there's nothing like actually doing it.
Right.
And really get that focus, build a beautiful human-centric experience.
Mm-hmm.
But then as soon as you've done that, move all of your focus onto driving revenue and
Absolutely.
proof points, right?
Exactly. And understanding your unit economics. And I think it's okay to be a little bit slower in scaling, right? As long as your unit economics are there, your burn rate feels good, and you have enough cash in the bank, right? And that's what I often tell folks too. Like, not every business needs to necessarily, you don't have to automatically go out and raise, right? It's okay to spend some time growing a business, making sure that this is a product that people want, making sure that the unit economics makes sense, making sure that you understand your consumer's behavior, right? I just think sometimes it feels like almost like a rush to hurry up and like raise a pre-seed or a seed round. And I don't think that's necessarily always the best case scenario for every company.
Because the more proof points, the better. And again,
Absolutely.
the focus on unit economics is terribly important. Burn rate, and again, for those of you who are listening who aren't quite sure what burn rate is, it's the amount of money that you're spending more than the amount of money that you're getting in your company on a particular month. So you want to make sure that you're budgeting correctly. But I think the unit economics one is again really interesting because so many people don't know it. They know the top line general unit economics. Well, I can tell you how much my Facebook ads cost. No.
Right.
I want to understand every single aspect to your business and what levers that you can pull and how that's going to affect your business. And if you do this and you move to a slightly different channel, how is it going to affect the margins and how is it going to affect the revenue and how is that going to slow you down or speed you up?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing makes me run for the hills more than when I'm having these first conversations with entrepreneurs and they just don't have that information or can't immediately, right after that conversation, send me a spreadsheet because they have it worked out. For me, I think as an entrepreneur, you should always be thinking about that and dreaming about them and figuring out how you can make them tighter and even better. And so it's really alarming to me when you don't have that down pat.
And it's also the unit economics all the way through.
Absolutely.
Not just what you did last month or before.
No.
It's that we got to work out how to get you to be X million dollars in revenue.
Absolutely.
And based on that, like, what is it you specifically need to do?
Right.
And what months are you actually going to hit it? You're really talking about milestoning.
Absolutely.
All the way through from
Absolutely.
where you came from to where it goes to.
Absolutely. And, you know, another thing I want to note, it's not just about the projections, right? It's like, I want to know actual numbers. Like, what has it been like the past 2 months until now, right? Because these projections, especially at the early stage, are great, right? Cool. I'm glad that you
They're
thought
kind of
through them.
funny, actually.
Yeah.
You see some, it's like, so I'm going to do $20 million next year. So what have you done this year so far?
Right.
27,500.
Right.
But we're going to do Facebook ads.
Yeah. I was actually talking to another entrepreneur about this, and I was just ripping apart her deck and just giving her feedback. And she had this like really big financial like model in there that was all projections. And I was like, this is great. I mean, all this shows me is that you know how to multiply and use some Excel functions. But what's more important to me is like what has been up until this point, right? Otherwise, scrap it or put it in the appendix. Because as someone who's looking at like so many pitch decks a day, I oftentimes gloss over that model as soon as I realize that there's no actual numbers in them.
It's so awesome listening to you speaking about VC, and so many thoughts just go through my mind about how much better this space is becoming with not just people like you coming down into it, but also just the entire environment that we're in right now. And it's so damn exciting.
I'm excited.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
I want to finish up with a huge thank you to you, obviously. When are we going to do a Moonshots event over at the dojo?
Whenever you want, honestly. I would love to do that. I would love to have like maybe a veteran focused event.
Oh, so why don't we do that? I love that. Like a pure veteran focused event.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a panel, we bring in some veteran people,
Absolutely.
and then we have we just put it out to the entire veteran community, which
That'd
I
be great.
imagine you got great links with.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. I
Make
think
it
that'd be
training,
more-
bring in mentors, get loads of people around.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
So when do we want to do it?
Yeah, we should probably talk about it. I think in the next few months, I think that's totally feasible.
Speak to the folks. I will do this in June.
I know you will. You move a lot quicker than I do.
Really? Because
Yes.
I love the idea.
I
And
love
we
the
have
idea
not done
too.
anything. You know, we tried one veterans. I want to finish with this because I just want to I want to add some respect in for what you guys are doing, because you make it sound really easy because the stats are good, but it's not really easy. And we right at the very beginning, I remember two things happened here. Because I'm an idealist, right? I'm pragmatic because I know we need to bring in returns for our LPs, or we don't succeed as a fund, right? But I'm also an idealist in that I want to make sure that we're working within the very earliest part of the space, because I know it's a huge gap, and if we don't get those entrepreneurs through, then we're not going to do well. But I'm also a pragmatist, which is why we have our international accelerator, which de-risks us from all of the massive risk we have with the other accelerator.
Absolutely.
But I did try at the beginning, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we started working with people who are underprivileged, like really tough areas where they got no chance, and then also within veterans. And I went down with the Salesian the Salesians and the Boys and Girls Club into a place in East LA, and I saw these kids that were involved in gangs and just stuff had happened, and I'm like, man, we are so not ready for this.
It's a big lift.
It's a big lift. I'm thinking this is cool. We're just going to teach some branding, some product fit. We'll like hook these guys up with some human-centric design.
Yeah.
And I realized this was about 4 years ago. We were so out of our depth with trying to be able to train and put these people in place. I am now re-looking at it, and we're about to do our first deal, which I won't say it about now, but when we get it done, I'll be really proud that we put it in place.
Awesome.
But I also try to do the same thing with veterans, and it's incredibly difficult. It's just really, really hard. It takes a very different skill set than you normally need by just saying to people, hey, just go and do it. So I salute you guys and admire you guys for what you're doing. I think it's really brilliant. And I mean it. Like, let's do an event. It's super easy. We'll do it in June. We'll open up the dojo. We'll get some beers and some sodas out in the front. We got a great space, right? We'll bring in mentors, and we'll just do a really nice event, which is just focused on those guys and just in honor of all the awesome work that you do here.
Yeah, I mean, I think my two general partners would love that. So I think that's absolutely doable.
I'm feeling the love. Any last bit of advice for entrepreneurs? We've told them, you've told them, I've done nothing. You've told them where they should go, LA, yeah. You've told them what they need to focus on to make sure that they're prepared to go in for VC meetings. Anything else that we've missed?
You know, be kind to yourself. You're going to hear a lot of no's, and that doesn't necessarily mean you should stop. I think it should
doesn't mean you're a bad person.
No, it doesn't mean anything other that you might just want to ask another why after that no, and try to gather as much feedback as possible. And and just because a no is a no today doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a no tomorrow. There's plenty of companies that I've asked to keep me updated on their traction, and I sincerely mean that. And we check back in, and my managing partners are absolutely interested later.
I love it. And how can people find out more about Moonshots Capital?
You can always go to our website, www.moonshotscapital.com, and you can always feel free to email me, Jawhara@moonshotscapital.com.
You are awesome, Jawhara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
It's brilliant.
Thanks
We're going to keep on doing awesome stuff here.
Absolutely.
Everybody watch this space. We're going to have a veterans event here in June. So if you're a veteran, you better be reaching out to me, Brian at Expert Dojo, or Jawhara. And yeah, just keep doing the awesome work you do.
Thank you. You too, Brian.
Thanks for joining us. If you love the podcast, please empower your circle by sharing these stories. The Art of Startup War is brought to you by Expert Dojo. And remember, we invest in startups, $50,000 checks. Make sure you apply on our site if you are one of those great entrepreneurs looking to bring your company to the next level. As far as the Art of Startup War is concerned, we are back every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. So remember, check out the new episodes. If you want to find out what the investors think, check out season 1 or 2. But make sure you join us every single week.